Welcome back. In this notes, we're going to start working on a little bit more involved factoring. When I say involved, what I mean is now a does not equal 1. Now, that means, notice what we're looking at. So here we have a 3x squared plus 13x plus 4. So now there's a number with my x squared term, which what that means is now it doesn't break down into x and x. Now it's going to be a 3x and an x. So now you're going to have numbers with one or both of those x's. Now, the next step is still the same. You still break down the 4 just like you would in the previous notes. So 4 breaks down into 1 and 4 or 2 and 2. But if you notice, neither one of those combinations, 1 plus 4 or 2 plus 2, neither one of those adds to 13. Well, that's because it's the combination here that matters. Okay? So it's the connection of the 1 and the x and the 3 and the 4. It's that connection that ends up giving you the 13x, because 1x plus 12x gives you the 13x. That's why I started talking about that in the previous notes, because that mentality is going to help you for today. So let's dive right into some examples. Well, I need to look at that 2x squared. That 2x squared means I'm going to get a 2x and an x. I break down the 12. And again, if you need a calculator to help you, just start searching through options. But as you search through options, I think you'll see that at that point, you're actually finished. Those are the only options that you need. All right, and now you start plugging things in to guess and check. Trial and error. So I'm going to try 1 and 12. So that gives me 1x, 24x. Well, you can see that didn't work, okay? You can see that gives me 25x, not 11x. Now, the important thing today, when you're searching in these notes, the order matters. So if 1 and 12 doesn't work, you can try the reverse. You can try 12 and 1. Make those connections. 12x, 2x. Well, you're closer, but that's still giving you 14x instead of 11x. So still not going to work in the end. So after you try both directions, that's where you can cross it off your list and say, no, that doesn't work. All right, now I'm not going to take all of your time here with the wrong options. I want to show you what it looks like when you get it right. So, if you look at this, you end up with 3x and 8x, and that combination is what gives you the 11x that you're looking for. So that's going to be your answer. Looking at the next one, well, 7x squared. 7x squared comes from 7x and x. Whenever you're dealing with prime numbers, that's a whole lot easier. And now 28. And again, searching your calculator, you'll see 3 does not work. You'll get to there. 5 doesn't work. 6 doesn't work. And then when you get to 7, you realize that you're just doing the list in the opposite order and that you're finished. Now, I do want you to recognize if I'm shooting for a negative 53, again, to multiply to a positive and add to a negative, well, that's going to be 2 negatives. Okay, so I'm going to put my 2 negatives in right away because I know both of them have to be. And now I start searching. I plug in 1 and 28. I look at my connection, see that doesn't work, so I flip it. I try 28 with 1. See, that still doesn't work. So on and so forth. And again, I don't want to take all of your time with these ones with the wrong answers. I want to show you what it looks like when you get it right. So eventually you'll get to here. Well, you'll have a negative 4x and a negative 49x. And that is what combines to give you your negative 53x. So again, a lot of it is systematic trial and error until you get to the right answer. Okay? So let's take a look at this one together. So 3x squared. Well, 3x squared is going to come from 3x and x. 5 only comes from 1 and 5, so that's really nice. However, to multiply to a negative, it means we need a negative or a positive. Okay, we need one of each. All right, now in this case, what I want to show you is a little technique. So when I plug in 1 and 5, because everything matters where you put what, because there's a difference between the 3x and the x, I'm going to neglect my negative for a moment. Okay, I'm just going to make my connections. Because I want you to see something. By putting my negative in there, one of them is going to be negative, right? So that means if I have a negative 1x with a positive 15x, that means I have 14x. If I have a positive 1x and a negative 15x, notice that gives me a negative 14x. Where I put the negative doesn't affect the number, it affects the sign of the number. So I don't want to be flip-flopping the negative around because in the end, it's not going to end up changing anything. All it's going to change is the sign that I put on my number. So before I even put my negative in, I can see that neither way is it going to work in this case. All right? So I don't want you to have extra flip-flopping to do. So save that negative to consider at the end, okay? Just put the numbers in and then picture making one of those negative and see it doesn't work in either direction in this case. So that means I have to flip-flop my 1 and 5. So I'm going to put my 5 over here, my 1 over here. Now I'm going to make those connections. So 5x and 3x. And I know one of those has to be negative. So I can either have a positive 5x with a negative 3x, or a negative 5x and a positive 3x. All right, and notice this time I'm getting that 2x that I'm looking for, as long as it is the negative 5x. So I want to connect the negative up there, so I get a negative 5x, the positive over there, and that is finished. That's the end of my problem. All right. Last one. So this time we have a little hiccup up front. Because notice, to get a 6x squared, couldn't I use a 6x and a 1x, or a 3x and a 2x? So this time I have some options even for the first thing that I'm doing. Now, this is okay. All it means is you have some more trial and error to be doing. All right, now, what that means is you just have to choose one and roll with it. And if you exhaust all of your options, then that means you have to go to the other one and keep trying, okay? Now again, I don't want to waste all of your time with wrong things, so I'm going to lead us to the 3x and the 2x right away, okay? Then that negative 15 comes from 1 and 15, 3 and 5. One of them has to be negative to multiply to be a negative 15. So we know that that is what we're looking for. All right, now I'm going to start by searching with my 3 and my 5. So that gives me 6x and 15x. Well, that either leads me to a 9x or a negative 9x, making one of them negative, neither of which is what I'm looking for. So I know that can't be the combination that I need. Okay, so let's flip them. So I'm going to try a 5 with my 3. So that gives me a 10x and a 9x. Now this is looking much more promising because I can get x or I can get a negative 1x. Now if you notice, that is exactly what I'm shooting for. I'm shooting for an x. So that means I want my 10 to be positive, my 9 to be negative. So I carry that negative over, so I get a negative 9x, which means I put my positive there, and that is the end of my problem. So thank you again for joining me. I realize there's a lot of kind of guessing and checking in here, but as long as you're systematic about it and you're willing to try your options, you can always get to your answer. So please make sure you have all this written down and come and see me if you have any questions.